A silent revolution taking place in American economics. This is the headline, in fact, of Robert Reich's piece. It's published over at alternate.org. I'm guessing it started out at robertreich.com, his Substack newsletter. And he said, I've never seen anything like this in 50 years in politics, which is the essence of what I wrote, although I kind of buried the lead. It's the last paragraph in my piece today over at hartmannreport.com, and that I also published over on Daily Kos. And that is that Joe Biden, President Biden, has taken the Democratic Party and the White House back to the economic worldview of Lyndon Johnson, Jack Kennedy, Harry Truman, and Franklin Roosevelt, which is to say back to normal Adam Smith, traditional, classic supply demand side economics, and rejected all this supply side bogus BS that Reagan came up with to justify massive tax cuts for the billionaires. And this is what Robert Reich is pointing out as well. In fact, he's pointing it out in three areas. He said, number one, he's stimulating the economy from the bottom up with the CHIPS Act, the Inflation Reduction Act, and his infrastructure package. Robert Reich notes, unlike Trump, who just levied tariffs on Chinese imports and used it as a campaign slogan, Biden is actually investing in America's manufacturing capacity, and he actually is. And they're expanding factories all over the country, one right down the road from us here in Oregon, in fact. So that's trade and industrial policy. Number two is monopoly power. And Robert Reich, former Labor Secretary, Bill Clinton Labor Secretary, arguably one of the true progressives in the Clinton cabinet. Robert Reich says, Biden is the first president in living memory to take on big monopolies. He notes 4 big beef packers now control 80% of the market. Domestic air travel is dominated by 4 airlines. Most Americans have no real choice of internet providers. But now the FCC and the Antitrust Division of the Justice Department are looking into these things. Amazon, Google, Ticketmaster, Live Nation, JetBlue, Spirit, all that stuff. And then number 3, Robert Reich points out, is labor. Biden is the most pro-union president, Reich says, I've ever seen. I would say he's the most pro-union president since Franklin Roosevelt. And arguably the most pro-union president in history, except that Franklin Roosevelt actually got the Department of Labor created. He got the Wagner Act, the National Labor Relations Act, passed. But Biden is the first sitting president to walk a picket line. He's the first president really since Lyndon Johnson and Jack Kennedy to really embrace labor. Both Bill Clinton and Barack Obama having bought into neoliberal Reaganism to a large extent, kind of kept labor at arm's length. Everybody was wondering all these years, why didn't either one of them ever, overturn overturn the Taft-Hartley and end the so-called right to work for less? Why didn't they do that? Well, because they had this kind of weird relationship with labor because they were buying into neoliberalism and they were all gung-ho to ship jobs overseas. And but not Biden. Biden is coming back and saying, no, we're gonna change this.